Predatory mirroring. We tend to like people who seem like us. The same tastes, the same jokes, the same way of seeing the world. It feels like proof we've found someone who gets us. But in the hands of a manipulator, that reflection isn't coincidence. It's a mask. Predatory mirroring is when someone deliberately adopts your interests, your speech patterns, even your body language, to lower your guard. They're not showing you who they are. They're showing you who you are. Every shared "me too" makes you feel more connected, more understood, and less likely to question their motives. Serial con man Robert Hendy Freegard used this tactic for years, pretending to share his victims' values and fears until they trusted him completely. To one woman, he mirrored her patriotism. To another, her paranoia about spies. Once they believed they'd found a kindred spirit, he convinced them to cut ties with family, give him money, and even go into hiding for years. That's the danger of predatory mirroring. The moment you realize the connection was a performance, the person across from you has already mapped your desires, your weaknesses, and the fastest way to use both against you. The authority effect. Sometimes the most dangerous manipulation doesn't come from a con artist or a cult leader. It comes from someone holding a clipboard with a title that demands respect. When we believe someone is an expert, we're far more likely to follow their instructions, even when every instinct tells us not to. Psychologist Stanley Milgram proved this in the 1960s. Volunteers were told they were helping with a study on learning and memory. An authoritative man in a lab coat instructed them to deliver electric shocks to another person whenever they answered incorrectly. The shocks weren't real, but the screams were. Still, over 60% of participants kept pressing the button all the way to the maximum voltage, simply because the man in the coat told them to. This blind obedience isn't confined to laboratories. During the Cold War, U.S. civil defense agencies told schoolchildren to crouch under their desks to survive a nuclear blast. The advice defied all common sense. Anyone who'd seen photos of Hiroshima knew a slab of wood wouldn't stop an atomic firestorm. But because the orders came from government officials, millions obeyed without question. The authority effect is still at work today. Every time a credible figure makes a claim we don't question because of who they are. We like to believe we'd spot the manipulation, that we'd never be the one pressing the button or ducking under a desk, but history says otherwise. Third place infiltration. Home is your first place. Work might be your second. But your third place, the bar where you unwind, the coffee shop you frequent, the gym, the dog park, is where your guard is down. You chat with strangers, share routines, and reveal more than you realize. A watchful predator knows these are fertile hunting grounds. They're not charging at you head on. They're blending in, observing, learning. They figure out your patterns. When you show up, who you talk to, what puts you in a good mood, what annoys you. They become a friendly fixture. Before long, you start looking forward to seeing them. That's when they start weaving themselves in deeper. A casual ride home, an offer to watch your dog, a shared hobby. Bit by bit, they turn a public, low-stakes space into the foundation of a private connection, one you didn't ask for but feel awkward breaking off. It's the same tactic used by Dirty John, a master manipulator who charmed his way into women's lives before revealing just how dangerous he could be. He met women in gyms, coffee shops, and hospitals, posing as a charming acquaintance. Over time, he learned their schedules, needs, and vulnerabilities, then used that familiarity to slide into their personal lives and exploit them. The place you thought was safe becomes the very thing that gives them a direct line into your life. When you finally realize what's happened, they know your habits, your friends, even where you live, and suddenly, stepping away feels a lot harder than it should. Intermittent reinforcement. The fastest way to hook someone isn't by rewarding them every time. It's by making the reward unpredictable. When rewards are inconsistent, the brain stays on high alert, constantly scanning for the next hit. Dopamine spikes not just when you win, but when you think you might win, which keeps you locked in the loop even when the losses pile up. Psychologists saw this effect in B.F. Skinner's experiments with pigeons. When food was given on a fixed schedule, the birds ate when it arrived. But when it was given randomly, the birds pecked obsessively, sometimes hundreds of times with no reward, unable to stop. Humans aren't much different, and casinos exploit it mercilessly. Slot machines are unpredictable. They pay out just often enough to keep you pulling the lever, chasing the high of the last win. You can lose for hours, but the next spin might be the one that changes everything. That might is what empties pockets and ruins lives. In relationships, the same pattern can be weaponized. A manipulator showers you with affection and praise, then goes cold without warning. Just when you start to pull away, they flood you with attention again. The warmth feels like proof they care, but it's really bait to keep you in the cycle. Victims cling tighter, hoping the good version will come back, and in doing so, they accept more and more of the bad. Intermittent reinforcement doesn't just control your actions, it rewires your sense of what's normal, until even the smallest scrap of reward feels worth any amount of pain. Leveraging. All it takes is one mistake, one tiny breach of the rules, one act you think no one will notice. To an opportunist with an agenda, that single misstep is gold. From that point on, they don't need to charm or persuade you. They just have to lean on what you've already done. In prisons, inmates have perfected this into an art form. It might start with a request that feels almost harmless, like slipping them a cigarette. You know it's against the rules, but it seems minor. The moment you give in, you've handed them a weapon. The next request is bigger. A phone call you're not supposed to allow. Time in the yard past cutoff. A message delivered to another inmate. If you hesitate, the reminder is waiting. Yeah, funny thing. I wonder what your warden would think if he knew you gave me that cigarette. That's exactly what happened to a Georgia corrections officer in 2019. It started with a single, unauthorized snack from the commissary. Within months, she was moving cell phones, drugs, and cash. By the time investigators closed in, she'd crossed so many lines that her only options were to keep helping or face prison herself. The genius of leveraging is that it traps you in your own actions. The more you comply to keep the secret buried, the deeper you sink, until the only way out is to risk everything. Cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort you feel when your actions and beliefs don't match. Manipulators create that tension on purpose, because the urge to resolve it can make you easier to control. When your brain is in conflict, it looks for a way to reduce the discomfort, often by changing your beliefs to match your actions, even if those beliefs aren't true. Hazing is a textbook example. The grueling, demeaning, or even dangerous tasks you're forced to perform don't align with your personal values. But once you've gone through them, your brain needs to justify why you put yourself through such humiliation. The easiest way to resolve the dissonance is to raise the value of the group who hazed you. If they're worth it, then what you endured wasn't meaningless. It was a mark of honor. The same mechanism works when a con artist gets you to publicly vouch for them before you have all the facts. Once you've staked your reputation on their credibility, your mind resists evidence that they're lying, because admitting it would mean admitting you were wrong. That gap between reality and your public stance is the dissonance, and it pushes you to rationalize the situation rather than reverse your position. The more extreme the conflict between what you believe and what you've done, the stronger the pull to change your beliefs. And when that dissonance is exploited, you end up defending the very thing that harmed you, because admitting the truth feels more painful than staying loyal to the lie. Social isolation. A manipulator doesn't have to lock you in a room to trap you. They can dismantle your safety net one thread at a time. Friends, family, coworkers. One by one, they slowly disappear. The process is so gradual you barely notice it's happening. It often starts with small, seemingly reasonable remarks. Your friends don't appreciate you. Your sister always causes drama. Your parents don't treat you well. At first, you dismiss them, but each comment chips away at trust, making the people you once relied on seem less safe, less worth the effort. You start canceling plans and stop returning calls. Before long, the people who might help you are gone, not because they left, but because you quietly shut them out. With no outside feedback, you rely on the only voice that remains. Their version of events becomes the version. You learn to read their moods before you make decisions. You accept their explanations because there's no one left to compare them against. That's the endgame. Dependence. They become your confidant, your interpreter, your fact-checker, your lifeline. The exits still exist, the phone still works, the door still opens. But you won't use them, because with no one else to turn to, leaving feels more dangerous than staying. Tactile influence. The first move isn't always force. Sometimes it's just a touch. Not a slap, not a grab, just a light brush on the arm, a guiding hand on the back, a squeeze of the shoulder. It feels harmless, even friendly, but that's the point. Tactile influence works because we're wired to associate physical contact with trust and cooperation. A stranger's touch, especially delivered casually, bypasses suspicion. Your brain doesn't flag danger, it starts softening your resistance. Ted Bundy understood this. When he lured women to his car, he didn't act like a monster. He'd play the part of an injured man, arm in a sling, asking for help. The moment a potential victim stepped close enough, he'd guide them with a gentle touch, leading them toward his vehicle, toward isolation. That small, seemingly benign contact created a sense of connection that made people follow without thinking. Salespeople use it, politicians use it, scam artists use it. A fleeting touch can make you agree faster, buy more, give up more. It doesn't have to be aggressive to be controlling. It works because it feels natural, almost comforting, and you never even notice that you've been led someplace you didn't intend to go. Playing dumb. Some of the most dangerous manipulators don't shout, threaten, or intimidate. They play dumb or feign incompetence. It's a calculated act designed to make you feel comfortable or even superior. They'll tilt their head, ask innocent questions, or pretend they just don't get it. And that's when you start letting your guard down. You explain a process. You share a detail you normally wouldn't. You take on more responsibility because you think they can't handle it. Meanwhile, they're studying you, learning your habits, and quietly stacking the odds in their favor. Take Anna Sorokin, the fake German heiress who conned New York's elite. She acted like she was lost in the world of credit cards, invoices, and hotel checkouts, forgetting her wallet, claiming she didn't understand American tipping, and pretending to be helpless with logistics. People rushed to help her, picking up tabs worth thousands. By the time they realized she wasn't naive, the damage was done. When someone plays dumb, they're not being cute. They're creating a smokescreen so you won't notice the trap until you're already in it. The illusion of choice. You think you're deciding for yourself. You're not. You're being handed a menu where every option feeds into their plan. That's the illusion of choice, a trap that makes you feel like you're in control when you're already boxed in. Seasoned operators never say, "Do this." Instead, they give you 2 or 3 paths that all lead to the same destination, theirs. You feel like you're steering, but you're in the passenger seat. In sales, it's the car dealer asking, "Are you the type who makes smart investments or the type who lets opportunities slip away?" Suddenly, walking away feels like admitting you're reckless with money. In politics, it's ballot measures with loaded wording like, "Do you support raising property taxes, or do you oppose funding our children's education?" The framing makes it seem like saying no to a tax increase means you don't care about kids. It's not democracy, it's design. Authoritarians, cult leaders, and corrupt executives all use it. They want you to feel ownership over the decision because people defend the choices they believe they've made themselves. Once you've stepped inside that framework, you stop asking the most dangerous question of all. Why are these my only options? And in that silence, they win. Door-in-the-face technique. In 2014, a man posing as a charity worker knocked on the door of an elderly widow in Florida. He told her he needed $50,000 to rescue his dying nephew overseas. When she refused, he acted wounded, but then said, "I understand. Even a small contribution would help. Could you maybe spare $500? She agreed, relieved she could help without bankrupting herself. What she didn't know was that the nephew didn't exist. The charity was a front, and the scammer had already used the same script on dozens of seniors. The $50,000 plea was never meant to succeed. It was bait, a psychological setup to make the smaller request feel safe and moral. That's the door-in-the-face technique. Lead with the impossible, then settle for what you wanted all along. Abusive partners use it to chip away at boundaries. Fraudsters use it to open wallets. And in some cases, organized crime has used it to pull people into criminal acts they never imagined they'd agree to. You think you've negotiated them down. In reality, they've negotiated you in. Name usage.
Hey!
Your own name is one of the most powerful words you can hear. It bypasses the usual mental filters and makes you feel seen, acknowledged, and connected, even when the person saying it is your enemy. Skilled manipulators use this like a scalpel. Slip someone's name into conversation at just the right moment, and they unconsciously lean toward you, trusting more, resisting less. Serial killers have weaponized this. Dennis Rader, the BTK killer, sprinkled people's names into every interaction, from his victims to the police officers hunting him. In letters to law enforcement, he'd greet detectives by name, as if they were old colleagues. In conversations, he used names to feign intimacy and make his targets feel less like prey and more like acquaintances. It was part of how he convinced people to let him get close enough to strike. The effect isn't limited to monsters like Rader. Salespeople, politicians, and con artists all know that names act like a shortcut into your trust. Hear your name at the right moment, and you might miss the fact that they've already stepped inside your defenses. These are some of the games people play with your mind. Ever had someone try one on you? Drop the story in the comments.